Hello everyone and welcome back. So today we'll be trying to make the Othello game, which is this game. It's also known as Reversi, but I believe the new name is Othello. So I was looking at the rules from this website over here, which I'll put in the description below. So it's not really complicated per se. So basically you start with these tiles already set up. So there's two players, white and black. You will basically only be able to place your color whenever whenever there's the other player's color um, attached to it, and where it's connected on the other side by your color, right? So let me write it, right? So black must place a black disk on the board in such a way that there is at least one straight horizontal, vertical, or diagonal occupied line between the new disk and the other black disk, right? So it needs to at least be one space between, right? So here I can place it in those four spots, right? If I play here right now, it's white turns, right? So I could play it here, which would change this black one to white, or here, which would change this one, or here, sorry, which would change this one, right? And so on and so forth. And you could technically have multiple ones in a row, right? So if I click here, for example, then it's going to change those two, and so on and so forth. So that's the game that we'll be making today, which I've already made, but we'll be making it together, right? So let me go to the whiteboard and explain how it plays. Well, how I did it, how I'm thinking about doing it. Oh, and let me just give me 1 second. Let me disable this stuff. Okay, reactions are disabled. That's good. Just want to make sure that the focus is working. Seems like it is. Okay, great. So we have our board, right, which is just a square. It's divided in 8 columns and 8 rows. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Awesome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Right. So this is the board. And it starts with like black piece over here, white piece over here, black piece over here, and white piece over here, or vice versa. But I think that is it. Yeah. Okay. So we first need, like, I was thinking of using like a game object, right? So we'll have like either class or function class, right? So we'll have the game, right? Or Othello, whatever we want to call it. So that game will need to keep track of the player, right? Which player's turn is it? It'll need to keep track of the board, right? Which will be an array of arrays of 8 space, and the value of those will be either, I'll say like either, we can say like black or white. Hopefully you can see this. Yes, it seems like, okay, great. So those are the only two objects I believe we need to store actually for the data of the game. So I was thinking of using, so we'll have multiple functions, right, for this game object. We'll have the first one I'm thinking is just getting which cells is available, right? Which cell is available. So let's say we're currently black, right? So black has this one, uh, this one, this one, and this one, right? So to get that, we first need another function. So we'll have the available function, right? we'll have the available function, but we'll need to call another function to get which for a given x, y, well, let's say this one, right? For this specific spot, let me know all of these cells that are in between, right? So this one, it would return an array with only this one in this case. Same for this one. And this one would return this one. So I would call it like maybe a function called between. And this function is the main part of the game, right? So this one is the one that is going to tell us which cells needs to be turned over to basically flipped, right? So between needs to check. So between would receive like x, y. So give me everything between for x, y. So for this x, y, give me all of the whites around it, which I can flip over, right? So you'll need to check basically. You'll need to check from here. You'll need to check diagonally, horizontally, and vertically, right? So we'll need to check all of those directions. So we'll do like it's not going to be really efficient since I'm just going to loop for every one of them. But basically, I was thinking of doing like let's say for, let me redraw it a little bit. Let's say I pass the xy here, and I'll explain it for like 1 or 2. So let's do diagonal top right, right? So this would be for the diagonal top right. So we'll do a while true loop, which will have we'll also set like a x2 and y2 equals to y and x, right? I hopefully can see this. Yeah, it's a bit small, but we'll have x2, y2 just because I don't want to overwrite these ones. So while true, what we want to do is, in this case, top right, we need to add to x and reduce y by 1, right? At the same time, whenever I do this, I need to do this, right? So we'll start from here, but we'll directly update to the next one we need to check because we don't want to check this one, right? So we'll do x2 plus equals 1 and y2 minus equals 1, right? So this will be the where we're going. We'll need also an if condition, right? So if x2 is smaller than 0, or x2 is greater than 8 or greater than 7, or if y2 is smaller than 0, so on and so forth. This would just be like break. This would be like our break condition by default. We'll also need another condition to check. Okay, so I was thinking in here between we would have some type of variable maybe over here. Let me erase what I have here. There we go. Okay, so at this place we could have like a variable, maybe a constant, that keeps track of the spots, right? The spots. And this would be the spots that needs to be turned, right? That are going to be flipped. And so over here, we need to add those to the spots. But we let's say I'm checking, right? I'm checking for this one. Well, I'm checking for this one. I'm going down. Okay, I find a cell that is different color than the current player, right? So first thing first, if I find a cell that has the same color as the player, then I need to break this loop. Because let's say there's white over here, I'm not going to flip over these two, right? I'm stopping after this one. So whenever I find a, a, a tile that has the same color as the player, I need to break out of the loop. I also need to like say that there is an end, right? Because let's say this wasn't here and it was a white cell. Well, this spot is not available anymore since there is no black color over here, right? So it's not valid, right? So we can have like let connected, right? Or ended, right? If it's ended, be equals to false by default. And would be true whenever we do find the one that is the same color as the player. We also don't want to add into the spots while we're doing it because it might not be connected, right? So we want to add to the spot at the end whenever we know that it's connected. So we could have like a let temp spots, right? Be equal to an array as well, right? So those temp spots would be added after the while loop, right? If connected is true. That's pretty much the principle for between, right? So, and then in available, we would just pass through all of the cells in the grid and just call between, check if the return value of between has a length greater than 0. If it does, then that means we can place something at that spot. We would also need like a function to like do an action, right? Like I could call select or whatever other name you want to call it, but I think select is fine. So we'll have select, which will be passed xy as well. And this would basically call between, validate that it is a valid spot, and then update everything that was coming from between, like the return value of between, to the current player color, as well as changing the current player and setting the XY of this one to be the current player color. So that's pretty much the concept of the game. So let's implement that. All right, here. Is this okay? This okay? Just making sure. Okay, so let me remove everything that we have. I'm just going to keep create canvas. So all of this can be removed. Awesome. And I have a different file as well for the Othello class, right? You can just add it to your HTML file, right? So it could be in the same file, but just to keep it separate, I like it like that. Okay, great. So what do we want to do now? Let's create the object, right, that we said, like the game kind of object. I'll call mine Othello. And instead of creating everything inside of here, like at the beginning, I'm just going to create like a function for initializing the game. I'll call it init. Okay, great. So what do we want to initialize? There is going to be the player. And the initial player is black from what I gathered, the information. So we'll have a constant for the players. And let's have like what? And let's just set value like 1 and 2. Like they're going to be enums. It doesn't really matter. We'll always be using the variable instead of the value directly whenever we want to know the player. So the first player to be playing, so player will be your current player. it'll be players dot black. Awesome. We need to create the grid for the game. So I'll call it board. It's going to be an empty array to start with. We're going to loop true. Let me remove this. For let x equals 0, x is less than 8, right? We have 8 cells, x plus plus. Let's do the same loop for the y. And then in here in the x loop, we'll do the board index x equals an array. And then again, index y equals, and I'll set the value null to default with, so every cell will be null by default. Okay, so now we almost there. So the initializing needs to be the initial value needs to be white here, black here, black here, white here, right? So let's get those, right? So it'll be this dot board. We can hard code the specific indices, right? So we have index 3 for the x and index also 3 for the y. This is for this cell over here. And this one is white, so equal players dot white. Let me copy this 4 times. Okay, 3 times. Okay, so x 4 and y 3. This would be black. Okay, let's do black here as well. And here y should be 4, and this one should be 3. It's going to be white, and this one's going to be 4. It's going to be black. Wait, no, this is going to be white. This one's going to be black. Okay. Okay, I think we're good. So I think we're done initializing it, right? So let's do our most difficult function, the between, right? The getting everything that needs to be flipped for one given cell. So yeah, okay. Othello dot prototype dot, I called it between. I'm fine with it. Maybe get cells between would be a better name, but doesn't matter. So we said this is going to receive x, y. So the first thing we need to check, I mean, I would return, well, if the cell that we're currently checking to know if there's anything between needs not to be null, right? Because if it's needs to be null, right? Because if it's not null, well, we can't click it, so it wouldn't really matter, right? So we can just check this dot board index x index y not equal null, then we return an empty array. Okay, good. So now let's get our spots, right? Const spots, call an empty array to begin with. We wanted also a let temp to get all of our temporary variables. Okay, great. Okay, and let connected equal to false by default. Okay, so now let's do horizontal left, right? So let's say I were to click here, I need to check horizontally to the left, to the right. So I'll do right, sorry. We'll do left after. Okay, so I said while true, what do we want to do? We said to set the initial value, right, for x and y. So I'll call it ox. Maybe not the best name, but it's just a short name because I'm going to type it a lot of times, so I'm fine with it. So ox equals, we said x by default, and y equal y by default. Okay, awesome. So we said we don't need to check if this one is in between, right? The x and y we currently are looking for. So we can just directly update to the next one, right? So to move horizontally to the right, I just need to add to the x, and the y doesn't change. So OY won't change, OX will be added by added 1, right? And we need to check if, in this case, OX is equal to 8, I guess, right? If it's equal to 8, we break. Okay. And okay, so now we need to check the validity of the next cell, right? So we need to say something like, the first thing first, if the cell to the right, if let's say I wanted to click this over here, mouse doesn't want to grow, but well, yeah, okay. This one over here, if I were to click this one, when checking to the right, well, not anymore, but let's say this one now, when checking to the right, if it's empty, it just like if we were at the end, right? So if this dot board index x, index ox, sorry, and index oy equals null, we break. Okay, cool. I think we've taken care of all of the break condition for just looking at the next cell. So first thing first, if this we'll be using a lot, let's call it const spot. Okay, so if the spot is equal to our current player, like we said on the whiteboard, that means, that we're connecting, right? Let me do something like this, right? Over here. So whenever we're looking to the right, we see white, we see our current player. That means it's connected, that means it's a valid spot, right? So, well, it would be a valid spot if there was anything in between, right? So we can say connected equals to true, and we can break. We don't look at anything afterwards. Okay, so otherwise, that would mean that it's a cell, it's a spot where it's the other player, which means we want to add it to the temp, right? We want to say that this will, if it's connected, will eventually be flipped over if we selected that cell, right? So the temp dot push, and we can push like an object with x and y. Okay, cool. We're done with the horizontal right, I believe. We'll see. Now, for the next one, we basically need the same exact stuff. Oh, wait. We haven't pushed it to spots, right? Which will be the stuff that will be returned, right? So spots, we should just be updating it by concatenating the temporary that we found, but only if it was connected, right? Oh, it's a const. Let me do let. Okay, great. And now we need to reset everything for the next check that we want to do. So this needs to be set back. This needs to also be set back. And here we can move this here. This can be here, that's fine. And we can call this like reset, const reset equals just a function that does exactly this. Because we'll be doing it a couple of times. So we can just call it reset in here. Cool. Okay, so now we could also create a function for like check spot, or const spotting. Sure. So spotting would just be this. And I guess we would just pass it like x and y. So ox and oy. Oh, we already have ox and oy, so we can just pass this in here. But in this case, the break is not perfect, right? Because it's we could return like true or false, and true would just continue, and false would just break, right? So return true in this case to continue, return false, return false. I think that's fine. Okay, so spotting, and I could even put this in here, right? It would be return false. And so we would check all of the conditions though. So if ox is equal to 8, or if ox is equal to -1, or if oy is equal to 8, or if oy is equal to -1, right? This is the condition, right? So spotting over here, call it like this. Okay, great. So we basically just need to do this for the following one. So horizontal left would be going minus minus, not changing the y. So what's the issue with this? Oh, right, right. If not spotting, then break. That would be, whoa, that would be better. Okay, there we go. Okay, awesome. So to the left, that's fine, that's minus. Let's just copy this again. Vertical bottom. So x won't change, it will be oy bottom. It's adding to the y. Let's copy this. So vertical top, it will be lowering the y. Okay, awesome. Almost there, almost there. Now we need to do the diagonals. I'll do top right. So top right, we need to lower the y at the same time as doing making the x bigger, right? Going to the right, going top. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's copy this. So diagonal top left. So it would be just here. And diagonal bottom right. So it would be this and this. And diagonals, diagonal doesn't need to have an S. Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, okay. Diagonal bottom left. So it's plus on the y and minus on the x. Okay, I think we're good. Now we just need to return the spots. Is that all? I believe it is. That should be fine. Reset, yeah. Okay, I think we're done with the between function, which is the most difficult function of them all that we're going to do today. So Othello, what else do we need? We need, I like the fact that it's showing the available ones, so I'll create a function available, just because. So Othello dot prototype dot available equals a function. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, so available. It should just pass through the grid, right? The board. Don't need to set it. We need to skip if it's like it's not going to be available if it's already something, right? So if it's not null, we go to the next, right? So if this board is not null, we continue, right? We go to the next. Continue. Okay. What else? What else? We need to call between now. So this dot between. Whoa. Between. And we need to pass it the x and the y, right? Yeah. X, y. Here, this is a plane. That's so if it's yeah. Okay. Okay. So and I guess it's available if it's null. Yeah. Okay. So let's call const spots equals this. So we can say if spots is dot length equals 0, then we continue again, because if there's no available, like if there's no stuff in between, then it's not a valid cell to be used. Okay, so what else? What else? What else? If it's is that it? I think that's pretty much it. So well, I'm going to say like const available. I'll just call it list, just not to be confused with the other one. So list the push, and we can just push the current XY, I think. Okay, and then we can just return the list of available spots, right? Okay, so that's it. What else? We need a function for clicking on it, right? So I was thinking of select. So select should receive x and y. Okay. What should it do with it? It should, we set it, yeah, probably just set it. So it needs to make sure that the current cell is null, that the one we're trying to click is null. So is not null, we return early. Okay. What else? What else? Needs to get all of the betweens, right? So let's call this, let's do the same as this over here. But if there's no between, we'll just return early. Okay, afterwards, if there is some between, we need to loop through all of the ones that are between. It's called spot of spots. And we need to say basically this board dot spot dot x spot dot y is equal to the current player, right? Okay. And we also need to switch the current cell that we clicked on to the current player. Okay. And we need to update the current player to be the next, the other player, basically. So now I'll just do like an if condition. So basically, if the current player is white, then this the player is equal to players.black. Otherwise, it'll be equal to the white player. So this is switching the players. Okay, I think we're done with the game itself. Now we just need to draw it, because right now it's just a blank piece, which is not really interesting. So let's get into it, right? So we'll need a variable for the game itself. I'll just call it Othello. And we can initialize it right now. Well, not initialize it, but create it right now. I guess we could also just initialize it right now, but I'll do it in the setup. So over here, right, just dot init. Okay, great. So, I mean, we don't see anything because we're not drawing anything. I'll create a function just because we won't use the draw function. So I'll just create a function for drawing the board. I'll call it draw board. Doesn't really matter what it's called, but sure. So we'll draw first the background. Well, let's do a dark green. And I'll use a CSS variable here, dark green. Awesome. So now, and I'll call this once in the setup. Okay, so we got the dark green, right? I'll need a scaling factor, right? I'll put it here. SCL, and this should basically be the width or the height, right? But both of them should be exactly the same, divided by 8, because we got 8 by 8 grid. So now let's just draw the grid, right? The lines for the grid. It'll be a little bit more straight than the ones I drawn on the whiteboard. So let's just do for let I going from 0 to 8, because we'll draw both vertical and horizontal at the same time. So I'm not going to go through like X and Y. It's going to be the same in any case. So for the vertical lines, the X doesn't change and the Y change, right? So it's going to be something and then 0 and then something and then height, right? In the case of, so this would be vertical and this will be horizontal, okay? And horizontal will be starting from x0 going to width and then something, right? So what are those something? So I'm thinking it should just be I times the scale, possibly. Let's take a look. Let's set the stroke to white. Oh yeah, there's an issue because I haven't set it here. Okay, we're good. Let me just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's good. That's the same in both ways. So, oh, and it's currently drawing a line at the beginning. I don't want it, so I'm just going to start I at 1. Right there, you go. Or I could just say like, okay, do it, but draw the end one as well, right? There we go. But it doesn't matter. I think I like it more not having it. Oh, so we got the board. Nothing in there, but we got the board. Okay, so let's do for each cell in here, right? For each spots on the board. So for let x equals 0, x is less than 8, x plus plus, and I'm fine using like hard-coded 8 value instead of like doing this, Othello the board dot length, just because the game is supposed to be 8 by 8, so I don't see the point of not using 8 as the value. It's just easier to just go about. So we'll do like if Othello dot board index x index y is null, then we can just continue. We don't draw anything. Continue. Okay. And we would also, okay, so now let's say like if this is players dot white, we can draw a circle. We can just set the fill value, fill 255, else fill 0. Okay, and let's draw the circle. Circle which will be at x, y, and the diameter should be basically the scale, well, the scale, right? Yeah, okay, I need to offset the x and y by scale divided by 2 because I don't want the top left corner of the space, I want the middle of the space. Okay, there we go. Though I might want to like let's say I don't want to fill on this. No stroke, sorry. Not the fill. I want to keep the fill. Okay, it's good. And let's say I wanted to move this about, maybe make it a little bit smaller than the actual square placement, right? Why is it a little bit too much to the right and bottom? Let me do ellipse, if that's going to change anything. I don't believe so, but let's see. Divided by 2, SCL divided by 2. That's not. Why is the x and the y? Oh, you know what? I need to do x times scale plus whatever else, right? Y times scale plus. Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's better. So I'll go back to just doing a circle. I'm fine with it. Okay, let's make those a little bit bigger. So let's use the scale minus some value, right? Maybe 20. Well, sure, that's fine by me, right? Yeah, why not? Okay, now while it's doing this, let's also get the availables. So, or let's just do another loop for the availables. Okay, so let's do const spots, or just like available spots, or it doesn't matter. Othello dot available. Okay, and now we can just loop through those. So for const spot of spots, basically I'm going to do exactly this. And here I can just say x comma y. Okay, so it's drawing them like really dark. So I'm going to like put some alpha onto it. There, right? So those are the available spots. I think we're done with the drawing itself. We can just now, the only last thing to do is like actually like when you click, it does something, right? Calling this select function. So function mouse pressed. So mouse press, we're going to say const like x because we need to find the spot based on the mouse position. So we're going to floor the result of mouse x divided by the scale, right? Because we want to scale it back to the 8 by 8. And we're basically going to do the same thing, but for the y. So mouse y divided by the scale, floor all of that. And I'm going to put a safeguard in here, right? So if x is smaller than 0, or if x is greater than 7, right? Or if y is smaller than 0, or if y is greater than 7. Let's just do an early return. And last thing we need to do is basically call Othello.select with the x and y we found, x comma y. So if I save this and try to play, right? If I click over here, it doesn't do anything because select, it needs to select one specific. So let me do this one. So I'm clicking right now, but it's not doing it. So what's the issue? Let me console log maybe here. Did I write it properly? Mouse pressed. Okay. Console.log something. I just want to see if it registers. Okay, it does. Okay, let me console log the x and y value. X comma y. Let's see. Y x4, which makes sense, and y5, which also makes sense. Okay, so it's most probably in, wait, x is less than 0, or x is greater than 7, or y is smaller than 0, or y is greater than 7. That's fine. So it's most probably in here, right? This should not affect it, right? So spot between. Okay, that should be fine. Oh, you know what? I'm sure it's doing what it's supposed to. The only thing left is to redraw the board, right? Draw board. I think we're done now. Let me try it out. Okay, now I'm the white piece. Clicking here should change this one. Okay, that's cool. I'm just wondering, is it actually showing as, what if I were to do this? Oh, you know what? Wait. Okay, let me just update this over here. It's not equal to white. I'm just looking at if the player, there you go, right? Now, okay, now it's going white and black, white and black. Okay, cool. So we're done with the game. The only thing that's not done is maybe like the end condition, like if whenever there's no available spots, that's the end condition, right? And whichever one of the two colors have the most spots on the board, then that's the color that won. So that's pretty much a whole game. Hopefully you like the video. Hopefully you can play with somebody on this. And thank you for watching. Hope you appreciated the video as much as I did making it. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.